This daily habit can lower your risk of Alzheimer's by 50%. Let me tell you something that most people don't think about until it is too late. Your brain is like a garden. If you take care of it every day, it will stay strong and full of life. But if you neglect it, weeds start to grow, and before you know it, you have lost control. I have seen too many people watch their minds slip away, piece by piece, and let me tell you, it is heartbreaking. But what if I told you that there is something simple you can do every single day to cut your risk of Alzheimer's in half? Not a complicated diet. Not some expensive supplement. Just one habit that has been right in front of you all along. I know what it is like to watch someone you love forget your name. To see them struggle to remember where they are. To watch them lose the ability to do the things they once loved. It is not just painful for them. It is painful for everyone around them. And when you realize that this could be your future, it is terrifying. But here is the thing. You are not powerless. There is something you can do right now to protect your mind for years to come. And it is something so simple that most people overlook it. The habit I am talking about is reading. Yes, reading. Every single day. And before you roll your eyes and think this sounds too easy, let me tell you why it works. Your brain is like a muscle. If you do not use it, it gets weaker. When you read, you are giving your brain a workout. You are making it think, process, and remember. You are keeping it active in a way that no other activity can match. Watching television does not do this. Scrolling through your phone does not do this. Reading is the one thing that forces your brain to stay sharp. And the science backs it up. Studies have shown that people who read every day have a much lower risk of developing Alzheimer's. And not just by a little. Their risk is cut in half. That is not a small number. That is life-changing. Think about what that means. Imagine reaching old age with a mind that is still clear. Imagine remembering your loved ones' faces. Imagine still being able to have deep, meaningful conversations. Imagine keeping your independence instead of relying on others to take care of you. That is what daily reading can give you. I know what you are thinking. You do not have time. You are too busy. You are too tired at the end of the day. I get it. But let me ask you this. How much time do you spend on things that do not really matter? Scrolling through your phone. Watching mindless television. Sitting around doing nothing. What if you took just 15 minutes of that time and used it to read? 15 minutes a day. That is all it takes. And the best part? It does not matter what you read. It could be a novel, a biography, a history book, even a magazine. As long as you are reading something that makes your brain work, you're doing the right thing. I remember when I first started making reading a daily habit. I was younger, full of energy, and thought I would never slow down. But then I watched someone close to me lose their memory. I saw the fear in their eyes when they could not remember where they were. I saw the pain in their families' faces when they realized their loved one was slipping away. That was when I knew I had to do something. I started reading every single day, no matter what. Some days it was just a few pages. Other days I got lost in a book for hours. But I made sure I never skipped a day. And now, after all these years, my mind is still sharp. I still remember everything I need to. I still feel like myself. And I know that reading has played a huge role in that. Let me tell you something else. Alzheimer's does not care who you are. It does not care how successful you have been. It does not care how much money you have. It can come for anyone. And once it starts, there is no way to stop it. But you can fight it before it begins. You can make the choice today to do something that will protect your brain for the rest of your life. And it starts with picking up a book and reading. I know change is hard. I know it is easy to put things off until tomorrow. But do not wait until it is too late. Start today. Find a book. Read a few pages. Then do it again tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. Make it a habit that is as natural as brushing your teeth. Because one day, you will look back and realize that this simple habit saved your mind. And that is a gift you cannot put a price on. What role does storytelling play in keeping the brain sharp and memory strong? You see, stories are not just entertainment. They are workouts for the brain. When you hear a story, your mind is forced to engage. You picture the scenes. You feel the emotions. You connect the events. You hold on to details and follow the path from beginning to end. This is not passive like watching television. This is active. Your brain is making sense of something new, and in doing so, it is strengthening itself. I have lived long enough to see the difference between people who keep their minds engaged with stories and those who let their thoughts grow still. The ones who keep their curiosity alive, who continue to listen to stories, who tell their own and dive into the ones others share, they stay sharper for longer. They hold on to their memories, and more importantly, they hold on to themselves. I remember sitting with my grandfather as a boy, listening to his stories late into the night. He would talk about the old days, about struggles and victories, about love and loss. As a child, I thought he was just passing the time, but now I understand what was really happening. He was keeping his mind alive. He was weaving together pieces of his past, reinforcing them in his memory, making sure they stayed strong. And I was doing the same. I was not just listening. I was learning to hold on to details, to connect events, to see the patterns in life. Those nights shaped me, and they also shaped him. There is something magical about storytelling that nothing else can replace. It forces the brain to think in multiple ways at once. When you listen to a story, your brain is imagining the setting, processing the emotions, remembering past details, predicting what might come next, and connecting it all together. It is an incredible exercise for the mind. It keeps the memory engaged and the thought process flexible. That is why people who read, who tell stories, who listen to them, stay sharper as they age. I have seen people grow old in two very different ways. Some slow down, retreat into themselves, and let the world move on without them. Others stay engaged, telling stories, sharing memories, listening to others, always keeping their minds active. And you can see the difference. The ones who keep their minds filled with stories, whether from books, from conversation, or from their own memories, they do not fade away as quickly. They hold on to their identity. They keep their sense of humor. They remember. Reading is one of the most powerful ways to keep storytelling alive in your life. When you read, you are not just taking in words. You are creating images in your mind. You are stepping into someone else's world, feeling their experiences, learning their lessons. This process strengthens the brain in ways that nothing else can. It builds memory by forcing you to hold on to details and recall them later. It improves focus because you must follow the narrative. It even helps with problem solving because stories are filled with conflicts and resolutions. But reading is not the only way. Telling your own stories is just as important. I have always believed that every person carries a library of stories within them. The problem is that most people do not share them. They let them sit in the back of their minds, gathering dust, fading away over time. But when you tell a story, you bring it back to life. You pull the memories into focus, reconnect the pieces, and make them stronger. And the more you tell it, the clearer it becomes. That is why elders who share their stories often stay sharp longer. They are exercising their minds in a way that keeps them strong. Listening is just as valuable. I have sat in rooms where stories were being told, and I could feel the energy shift. People lean in. They become part of the moment. Their minds engage as they follow the journey being shared. And without even realizing it, they are sharpening their own thinking. They are reinforcing their ability to understand, to process, to remember. This is why cultures that value storytelling tend to have stronger connections between generations. The young learn from the old, and in the process, both keep their minds active. I have always believed that storytelling is a gift. It is something that connects us to the past, strengthens our present, and prepares us for the future. It is not just about remembering facts. It is about making sense of life. It is about keeping the mind active, keeping thoughts clear, keeping emotions strong. And it does not take much. A book before bed. A conversation with a friend. A moment of reflection where you revisit a memory and bring it back into focus. These simple acts are what keep the brain sharp. There are people who spend their lives searching for ways to keep their minds strong as they age. They buy expensive supplements. They try complicated exercises. They follow strict routines. But the answer has always been right in front of them. Stories. The ones you hear. The ones you read. The ones you tell. They are the key to keeping your brain alive. Could the secret to a clear mind in old age be hidden in the stories we read today? I believe the secret to a clear mind in old age is hidden in the stories we read today. I do not say this as a theory. I say this because I have lived it, and I have watched others live it too. The mind needs exercise just like the body does. If you stop moving, your muscles weaken. Your body stiffens. The same thing happens to your brain. It needs to be challenged. It needs to be stretched. And stories do exactly that. When you read a book, your mind does not just sit there passively. It works. It imagines. It processes information. It connects ideas. And without realizing it, you are strengthening the very thing that will keep you independent, aware, and present in your later years. I remember my father in his last years. He was a man who read every day of his life. He would wake up and reach for a book before he even had his coffee. He never let a day pass without reading something new. And even when he was well into his 80s, his mind was as sharp as ever. He could recall details from books he had read decades earlier. He could discuss ideas with a depth that left younger men in awe. He never lost his clarity, never became confused or forgetful. He was proof that the mind, when well-fed, stays alive. I have seen the opposite as well. I have known people who let their minds sit still. They stopped learning. They stopped reading. They filled their days with routines that required no thought. And over time, their minds became slow. They struggled to remember things. They lost their ability to engage in deep conversations. They faded. And I do not believe for a second that this was just fate. I believe it was a result of how they treated their minds. A brain that is not exercised will weaken. A mind that is not fed will wither. There is something unique about reading that makes it one of the most powerful tools for keeping the brain strong. Unlike watching television, reading requires effort. It is not passive. Your brain must create images, understand emotions, follow a storyline, remember details, and make sense of new information. This constant engagement is what keeps the brain flexible and active. It keeps the pathways in the mind clear, preventing them from becoming blocked or sluggish. And the earlier you start, the stronger those pathways remain as you age. I have always believed that the books we choose to read shape us. They do not just fill our minds with stories. They train our brains to think in certain ways. A person who reads complex stories filled with deep ideas will develop a mind that can handle complexity. A person who reads about different cultures, different times, different ways of thinking will develop a mind that is open and adaptable. This kind of mental flexibility is what allows people to stay sharp even as they grow older. They do not get stuck. They do not resist new ideas. They stay engaged with the world, and in doing so, they keep their minds clear. I have often wondered why some people seem to age mentally faster than others. And I have come to believe that it has less to do with genetics and more to do with habits. The brain needs to be used. It needs to be pushed. It needs to be given challenges. And reading provides that challenge in a way that nothing else can. When you read, you are constantly training your memory. You are building new connections between ideas. You are strengthening your ability to focus. These are the very skills that protect the mind from decline. I once had a friend who never thought much of reading. He would tell me that books were for people who had too much time on their hands. He preferred simple distractions. He liked things that did not require much effort. And as the years went by, I watched his mind slow down. He began forgetting things. He struggled to follow conversations. He would lose track of thoughts mid-sentence. And the saddest part was, he knew it was happening. He would tell me he felt like his mind was slipping away, and he did not know how to stop it. But by the time he realized what was happening, it was too late. The habits that could have saved him were never built. I do not say this to frighten anyone. I say this because I have seen it with my own eyes. And I know there is a way to protect ourselves. It starts now, today, with the stories we choose to read. Every book, every page, every new idea we expose ourselves to is like a deposit in the bank of our future mind. It is an investment in clarity, in sharpness, in independence. It is the difference between growing old with a mind that is still full of light and growing old in the dark. If you knew that daily reading could give you more years of independence, would you still make excuses to avoid it? If you knew that daily reading could give you more years of independence, would you still make excuses to avoid it? I have heard every excuse in the book. Some say they do not have time. Others say they are too tired. Some claim they were never much of a reader to begin with. But I often wonder how many of these people would change their minds if they could see the years ahead. If they could feel what it is like to sit in a room full of people and struggle to follow a conversation. If they could experience the frustration of forgetting the names of people they love. If they could understand what it means to lose not just memories, but the ability to think clearly, to make decisions, to live without depending on others. I have watched people I care about lose their independence, not because their bodies failed them, but because their minds did. They reached a point where simple tasks became overwhelming. Reading a menu, writing a note, following the plot of a movie. Things they once did without thinking became impossible. And when the mind weakens, independence is the first thing to go. It is a slow loss. At first, they forget little things. Then they start repeating themselves. Then they struggle to recall what they were doing just moments before. And before long, they are no longer making choices for themselves. Others begin making those choices for them. I have spent my life reading. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And as the years have passed, I have come to realize that this habit has been one of my greatest strengths. My mind still moves quickly. I can hold conversations, recall details, make decisions without hesitation. I do not say this to boast. I say this because I have seen the alternative. And I know that the difference is not luck. It is not something that just happens. It is built, day by day, with every page turned, every word processed, every new idea explored. Reading is not just about gaining knowledge. It is an exercise for the mind. Every time you read, you are training your brain to focus, to remember, to analyze. You are keeping the pathways in your mind active, preventing them from weakening. It is no different from physical exercise. If you stop moving, your muscles weaken. If you stop thinking deeply, your mind does the same. And yet, people find excuses. They tell themselves they will start later, when they have more time, when they feel more rested, when life is less busy. But later never comes. And by the time they realize they needed this habit, it is often too late to undo the damage. I once knew a man who was as sharp as a knife well into his 90s. He could recall details from conversations he had years earlier. He could quote books from memory. He could tell stories with such clarity that you would think they had just happened. His secret was simple. He read every single day. He never let his mind rest for too long. He challenged himself with difficult books, new ideas, different perspectives. And because of that, he never lost himself to time. I also knew another man who spent his days avoiding anything that required effort. He preferred television over books, routine over learning, passive entertainment over deep thinking. And as the years passed, I watched him slip away. He began forgetting things. He struggled to follow conversations. He would start a sentence and forget where he was going with it. And eventually, he reached a point where he no longer trusted his own thoughts. He had let his mind sit still for too long, and it had begun to wither. I often wonder what people think they are saving time for when they say they do not have time to read. What could possibly be more important than investing in the one thing that determines your quality of life as you age? The truth is, people do not avoid reading because they lack time. They avoid it because they do not see the cost of neglecting their mind. They do not see the years ahead where they might struggle to remember their own past. They do not see the moment when they will realize that independence is not something you hold on to by accident. It is something you protect through daily effort. If you knew that reading could be the difference between staying sharp and fading into confusion, would you still make excuses? If you understood that the stories you read today could be the very thing keeping your mind clear in old age, would you still say you are too tired? If you could see the person you will become in 20 or 30 years, would you still believe that watching television or scrolling through a phone is a better way to spend your time? I do not ask these questions to make anyone feel guilty. I ask them because I have seen the consequences of ignoring them. I have seen the difference between those who keep their minds alive and those who let them go. And if I could give one piece of advice to anyone willing to listen, it would be this. Read. Read every day. Read books that challenge you, that make you think, that force you to remember details and connect ideas. Read stories that transport you to different places, that introduce you to different ways of thinking, that stretch your imagination. Because every time you do, you are strengthening the very thing that will determine how you live the final years of your life. If you liked today's discussion, Don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel, so until next time, take care.